Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Mic'd Up. And this month is going to be a special series where we talk about all different things of mental health awareness in conjunction with World Mental Health Awareness Day. So today it's going to be a very special episode. We have two guests. Over here, we have Yin, a licensed counselor, and Tapisha, a trainee counselor. And I'll let them introduce themselves to you guys to give a better background to what they do and stuff like that. Yin, why don't we start with you?
Right, thanks, Shun. Right, so it's good to be here. My name is Ian, and I'm a licensed and registered counselor of Lembaga Counsellor Malaysia. I'm also one of the three founding members of Cara, and currently I'm also working in another counseling centers where I mainly focus on providing EAP services for companies and for their own employees, basically. Right. So in terms of my experiences in counseling, I mainly deal with a lot of issues like I say personal emotional struggles, things like depression, anxieties, day-to-day issues, and also sometimes we have things to do with like I say career concerns. Right? But more recently, I think everyone will be expecting things like I say with the COVID situation. Right? There's also a lot of things like pandemic anxiety, right? Things like I say social isolation. Right? So in that sense, my experience is a little bit more varied, and I've not really very specialized in any specific areas at this moment, right? But mainly the areas, the clients that I deal with mainly focus on young adults, working adults, right? So these are the main clienteles I cater to.
I see. All right. Then Tapisha, we move on to you. I'll give a brief introduction about yourself.
Thanks, Shun. Like you mentioned earlier, I'm a trainee counselor with Monash University Malaysia, and I'm also a trainee counselor with Cara as well. And previously, before starting this master's in professional counseling program, I was studying psychology in Health University. And currently, the clientele that I see are similar to Ian as well, young adults and working adults. And my key interests currently are burnout, trauma and abuse, relationship issues, and stress. So since I'm a trainee counselor, it's most of my experience is mainly seeing different clients, like I mentioned, working adults and young adults as well. So currently gaining experience from that as well. Yeah.
All right. Both of you are working in the same workplace and all that. Why don't you give a little bit of, I guess, introduction of what Cara provides and what services they do and stuff like that as well?
Right. So Cara is a collaboration like between a group of therapists, right? And our goal is mainly in terms of providing affordable and accessible mental health care. Right? As I expect, most of us would have some sort of idea about how mental health care is often has this reputation of being very, very expensive, right? But that's what we are trying to change this narrative. Right? We want to bring this access to more people within the community, right? As well as to bring awareness. Right? A big part of our operation focuses on psychoeducation, raising awareness of issues in through our social media engagement, right? Also part of the effort is by reaching out to the community through podcasts like yourself, right? As well as other channels, right? And in that sense, what we really try to do is to make mental health care something that everyone can have, right? Rather than a luxury or any sort of things where as an afterthought, right? Because when we think about healthcare, normally what we think about is things like, let's say, medical, right? Which the government will be able to provide, right? And even then, sometimes medical care is not really accessible by everyone, right? So there's a lot of issues involved as well. And with mental health care, there's an added layer to that, right? In that there's a raising awareness, but at this moment, it may not be up to the level where we feel that everyone is able to accept and understand about mental health. Right? And this is also part of what a big part of our mission is to really bring this awareness so that everyone will have this knowledge for themselves. Right? Because everyone will know things like, let's say, fever, cold, flu. Right? When it comes to things like depression, anxiety, it's just a very big word. Right? But then, it's just feeling very upset, right? Or feeling very worried. Right? But what are the details entail? Like how are they different from each other? These are things that most of us will not encounter until, let's say, you really dive into the topic itself, or let's say some of us encounter it during our tertiary education, right? In our psychology courses, right? And yeah, not funny to say that I'm also have a very similar background with our intern Tapisha here, right? Because I was also a health graduate in our undergrad psychology, right? And then I moved on to Monash University for my master's, and now I'm in Cara. Right? So there's a lot of parallel there, right?
Yeah.
Well, then in that case, both of you are actually my seniors because I'm also a health graduate from psychology. Yeah.
Right.
Mini hot party here.
Yeah, little help party here. But yeah, I mean that's the thing with like mental health, right? Like I mean, compared to general healthcare and whatnot, there's always this stigma that, oh, if you're having like mental health issues, it's a very negative aspect of life that people see it in. And people think you have um problems and they don't really know how to help it. So I mean it's really good that you guys are like trying to provide very, in a way, also affordable mental health care and like give people a sense of like, you know, raising awareness and just being able to just provide this service everywhere. I think it's a very good thing already lah. So thank you guys a lot. Yeah. So let's move into one of the, I guess, aspects that we did cover ourselves. So it's all about, you know, loving our own selves and whatnot. So I guess just want to get your general thoughts of what do you guys understand by self-care and like self-love, your own definition or and whatnot.
Should I need to start?
Anyone? Yeah, go ahead.
Right.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead, you can go.
Yeah.
Right. So self-love and self-care, these are things that I think we hear quite often, right? Especially when you deal with issues like mental health, that people will tell you, oh, you need to do a lot of self-care, you need to love yourself before you can love others. There's a lot of very, very big ideas, right? Like, you know, everyone will parrot the same idea, right? But how do you actually do that, right? What does it actually mean to love yourself, right? And I actually find it very interesting that you pair these two together, self-love and self-care, right? Because it's actually a very important thing to know that for you to care for yourself, you need to first love yourself. Right?
That's true. I agree.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
And that's also where I find a very big disconnect about the idea of self-care, right, in our society right now, right? So we hear a lot about people telling you, I think quite often therapists commit the same mistake, right? We tell others to care for themselves, right? We encourage people to care for themselves, but we don't do that to ourselves, right? So it's a very big thing about like how, oh, do as I say, not as I do, right? And for us to really be able to care for ourselves, we also need to first love ourselves, because otherwise self-care, it becomes twisted. This idea that, oh, if I do this, does it mean that I'm being lazy? Am I being too lenient with myself? But it's okay for others to do that, right? It's okay if we allow others to cut some checks to themselves, right? But we do not allow ourselves as our privilege, right? And that's where we also see quite often that self-care feels more, say, permissible if others encourage you to do it. Let's say I tell you to do it, oh yeah, it's okay, right? And if you tell me to do it, I'm maybe a little bit more likely to be willing to try to perform some self-care activities rather than me telling myself that. But it feels like, am I just lying to myself? Am I just lazy? These are thoughts that quite often comes up, right? And for us to have this sort of self-love, right, which is this very deep care, a sort of self-acceptance, right? And it's not much different from the love that we can give to, let's say, our family members, our romantic partners. When we see them, let's say, suffering, or when we see them feeling very stressed, we try to encourage them to do it because we care for them, right? And for us to have that self-love is also show the similar care for ourselves. To know that we are also capable of suffering, and we are also deserving of care and attention. And when you know that, and you really, really accept that I am a person that is worthy of care, and this care starts from myself. And that's where self-care can really come. Right? I think everyone knows how to do self-care, like going to a walk, getting support, even just leisure activity like watching a movie. But it's really the willingness, right, that brings us across. Right?
Not everyone's able to love themselves as much, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that's the tragic part, because sometimes we are taught that it's wrong to do that. Or sometimes we are taught that we are not deserving it. And that willingness is really part of what we do in therapy, because everyone knows how to do something, but we can't do it. Or we feel bad.
Yeah. And
I think
what about you, Tapisha? Yeah.
I think Ian brought up a lot of good points, especially I resonated with the one where he said a lot of people say that self-care is being selfish, like putting yourself first is very selfish. Like, why would anyone do that? And also another thing I always hear is if I give myself the time to rest, I'm being unproductive. Why can't I do work instead? Like, why do I need that time for myself? But in actual reality, if you think about it, if you're well rested and when you're well rested, you get more energy. And when you have more energy, you're able to do more things eventually in the end because you are more productive. You become more productive. So in that way, self-care isn't unproductive, but on the other hand, it is actually very productive if you allow yourself time to rest and to recharge. Whereas for self-love, I think it's a journey. It's very different for each person. Self-love could be setting boundaries, saying no to certain things that you don't want to do, or it could be giving yourself a treat by buying stuff or pampering yourself. And whereas for me, self-love meant unlearning certain things that harmed me in a way, in the sense that, for example, setting boundaries. I didn't know how important it was until I became a trainee counselor, that okay, certain boundaries need to be set. And now that we're all working from home, the work from home life gets a bit blurred. I'm sure all of us can understand, especially when you're online learning as well. So self-love for me, it took a lot of unlearning certain things and learning how to be more kind to myself. Because if I'm able to be kind to everybody else, it took me a while to realize that I should be showing the same kindness to myself as well. So just few 2 cents of my thoughts about self-love and self-care.
All right.
I think it's mainly for self-acceptance, like what Ian said too.
I mean, you both raised really, really good points, because I think when we had a talk about this, it's more of how we took care of ourselves rather than what it actually means to really love yourselves inside and whatnot. So yeah, thank you for your 2 cents and whatnot. But we will be, I mean, you guys raised a lot of points, so we will be touching about the boundaries and the family things first. But before that, just wanted to ask, like, how do you know that your own mental health, or just maybe not your own, but maybe your friends and whatnot, like how do you know it's like degrading, and what signs can you look for? Like, would you like to share with our audience and all that?
Right. So in terms of let's say noticing, right, that your mental health is really taking a hit, a lot of us don't really notice that until it's really too late. Right? It's just the same way as how we don't notice our health until we are sick. Right? And usually when these symptoms really come up, it's when it becomes really significant and we don't really have a lot of choice to address them, I would say. Right? And with mental health, it is a little bit more difficult for a lot of people because we are not educated in the sense to pay notice to these things. Right? For a lot of people, they may notice things like, let's say, I'm feeling a bit more irritable recently, I'm feeling more tired, I'm feeling a bit more, let's say, stressed, easily annoyed. Like, there's a small signs that actually point to underlying issues. Like, let's say, like a lot of stress. But for us, it's just another day. Right? Because we have been led to believe that, oh, that's just how life is. Everyone feels stressed. I just feel a bit angry recently. Like maybe I need some anger management. Right? And that's also why I think it goes back to the same idea about awareness. And in this case, a little bit more about mindfulness as well. Right? So to be mindful is to be aware of ourselves, right? Be aware about how we feel and how we think. Right? Because a lot of us, we go through our days, especially if you have a day job, a 9 to 5, that's the routine there. Right? We don't need to think too much. We wake up, get our breakfast, we go to work, we go there, for about, let's say, 10 hours. We come back home and then we eat and we sleep. That's how routine reinforce a habit of not thinking and not paying attention to ourselves. Or it goes into like an autopilot mode. And that's also probably why this trend of mindfulness is really picking up recently. But it's telling you that, hey, you should pay attention to yourself. Right? And you should also be a bit more mindful about how you feel about certain things. So perhaps for myself, there's a little trick that I actually sometimes share with my clients about how I notice that my own personal mental health may not be at the best at the moment. So I believe most of us here have experienced like driving cars, and how sometimes Malaysian drivers can be a little bit exciting.
Questionable.
Right?
Yeah.
And what I do notice for myself personally is that when I am in, let's say, not in the best place, I notice myself getting a little bit more easily irritable on the road. Right? When I notice people trying to, let's say, overtake or trying to merge lanes, and I become a bit more impatient. And I also notice how I tend to press the horn a little bit more often. And these are things that I personally did not pay attention to like much earlier on until I really dive deep down into this like therapy process and really learn about these things to really monitor like what's going on within myself. And so here, what we see is that there is a change, right? There's a change in my usual behavior. Actually, the first sign, right? There's a change in how I respond to certain things. Right? I say small things make me very, very angry. What's going on? Why do I feel so upset about, let's say, a spilled cup, right? Or let's say something small broken. So I would say, pay attention to changes, small changes especially. And if we are a little bit, let's say, not confident in our own ability to observe this thing, or there's a very easy way for you to do that. Ask your friends, ask your colleagues. Right? Do you notice anything different about me recently? Like, it's not about my hair or my shirt, right? But my behavior. Do you think I have been a little bit, let's say, more upset recently? Like, do I use a lot more harsh words? Do I seem a bit impatient?
So just look for abnormalities, basically.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Okay.
So small changes. It may not always be negative. Right? And there's also the added benefit of when you ask that, something you get affirmation like, hey, I noticed recently actually I've been having great mood. Sometimes they may say that, they notice you actually performing much better. Or then you actually get a positive affirmation. So this is actually always helpful to have this objective, to really just reflect what's going on recently. And the good part is that sometimes you notice positive changes that you might not have noticed otherwise as well. Of course, this one it depends on each individual differently. And perhaps our intern here, Tapisha, can also share about her own personal experience with her clients.
So I think Ian summed it up perfectly. But what I'll just add is these little changes that you notice in yourself can also be related to the emotions that you're repressing. So, for example, like spilling your cup accidentally. Every person's normal reaction would, the first thing they would say is they will critique themselves first. And instead of showing it out to someone else. So any little thing that happens to you, for example, if you get scolded at work or you can't answer certain questions on your exam, if you keep repressing these emotions, you would end up bottling up all of these emotions and it would cause you some amount of stress. And when you're stressed, you could be having other issues like anxiety and depression as well. And in the long term, it can affect you. So like what Ian said, noticing these little changes in yourself, being irritable or having like you're crying extra and you are lashing on other people, that's when you need to stop and reflect like, okay, what's going on with me? Have a talk with yourself, like check in with yourself. And if you feel that you need the extra support, for some people, they can reach out to their friends or their trusted loved ones. For others, they can also, if they're able to, they have the time and they have the finances, they can look for a professional counselor to talk to as well.
Okay. Actually, that's a very interesting point because maybe this is moving on to a bit more of a personal side, but what if we notice like our friends and family having this how do I say, symptoms and whatnot? So what can and what should we do actually, like coming from a professional background? To what extent should we offer our hand, and to what extent should we just like ask them to seek a professional?
Okay, so I noticed that once family and friends know that you are a professional counselor, they think that it's time to get some free therapy, which is understandable, and it's normal for us to be like, okay, come let me know what's going on. But this is in relation to the boundaries that I was mentioning earlier as well, because it'd be difficult for us to think logically and to remove that judgment that we have about our friends and family. So it's better for them to seek professional help from someone else instead of coming to us. But when it comes to family and friends, I feel that I think it all comes down to listening attentively to them first without judging them. That's the most important thing I need to highlight, without judging them, because we often underestimate how powerful it is to actually sit down and just listen attentively to them. Because most of the time they might need a listening ear. So talk to them, learn the listening ear first. So don't judge, just don't give your opinions, don't just listen to them. And when it comes to advice, if they ask for it, then give it. If not, just keep it to yourself. And then after they've spoken to you about you, just let them know about counseling services that are available and that are affordable. And that if they're open to seeing a counselor, and just see their reaction to it. Because for some people, when you suggest seeing a counselor, it all comes back to the stigma again. So the first thing that comes to their mind is, oh, I'm crazy. When in actual reality, it's not. There's no, you don't need to have that sense of fear when you see a counselor, because you're just there to listen and provide certain approaches that can help you see some changes in your life or see some improvements in your life. So I think it all boils down to being a listening ear first, and then slowly suggesting seeking help from a professional counselor.
I agree as well, because even for my case, usually if I do need to talk to someone, the first thing I always ask is, do you need advice or just want someone to listen to you? Then at least I know which approach to take, like when it comes to it. But because I'm not actually a licensed counselor or anything, I cannot give like really professional advice and whatnot. Like I will always try to recommend if they do require the help they need, then we'll just search about some services that they should and could go to. But Ian, what about your thoughts about this whole thing?
Shun brought up a very, very good line that they could use, right? Just to set the expectations, right? Do you need advice or do you just want me to hear out? Because sometimes when we approach our family, we do seek for practical help. Right? So to make that sort of distinction clear, and this sort of expectation needs to be set right? For us also, let our family members know what we are here for. Right? We're here to hear you out. I'm not here to try to point out your mistakes. I'm not here to try and tell you that, oh, you have a problem. Right? And also in the sense, there are a lot of things that the therapist can do in the session, but there are also a lot of things that only can come from your family. Right? Because a therapist can point out a lot of things, let's say, personal insecurities, family issues, like upbringing, negative experiences. But quite often, there are things that a strong family bond is going to help a lot as well. To know that your own fashion will accept you. Understand that I have a place in this world and in these people who are bonded with me. Because family is, for better or worse, like one of our closest bond that we can have. Right?
That's true.
And of course, that also means that our family members have a much more greater potential of causing negative mental health issues as well. Right? In that sense, our role as family members is quite important. Also understand what's our role am I playing here? Am I actually adding on to this stress unconsciously? Right? But let's say if you do notice, let's say your friends or families having these sort of issues, like what Tapisha has mentioned, just to make your presence felt, right? And to let them know, I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to point out your problems, but I do notice that you're suffering. I notice that you're unhappy. And I want to be here for you, right? For them to understand that they are not alone. That is very important. Because maybe sometimes you take for granted the people we have around us, the support, right? And it's not really the same case for everybody, right? And sometimes just because you're there doesn't mean the person feel your presence. It's like being a physical presence and a more psychological presence with a strong connection to know that this person is not just sitting here with me. They're sitting here with me because they know I need them here. They know that I need someone to hear me out. So that's where this expectation setting is very important. By telling you that, hey, I'm talking to you right now, not just because I'm very free and I'm nothing to do. Because I noticed this, right? I noticed that you have been maybe a little unhappy recently, and I want to cheer you up. And for us to reach in like that, it also opens up a lot of more freedom for them to express. Because when you reach in like that, you already signals that I want to know more and I want you to talk to me. And it's okay for you to talk to me. But there's also a lot of fear, right? When you try to reach out. Like, what if this person doesn't want to share? Let's say if I'm very stressed, I talk to my friend. Like, what if they're also very stressed? Am I adding to their stress? Right? Am I giving them problem? And that's also one of the issues in mental health, mental health issues is that it's like a little feedback cycle. We are stressed, and then we try to reach out to others, but then we feel that, oh, we might be burdening them. We can actually give us even more stress. Right? So that's a trick that our minds play for us, right? And when we actually reach into people who are suffering, we cut off that cycle. We are directly telling them, hey, this is not a burden. I'm doing this because I want to feel out. And that is actually going to be very helpful. Right? Because we often encourage people to reach out, but it's not that easy.
True.
Because you do not know who is safe to reach out to. Right? And therapists, of course, there's a money, or like there's a cost involved. Right? Because we try to bring that barrier down as much as possible. Of course, the first step is we go back to your own support system, own friends, own families. And you can also build up this sort of positive environment where people don't need to fear sharing. Right? So it's like, you foster this safe environment, everyone actually can reach out to everyone, everyone can hear everyone out. Right? Then in that sense, it also protects you from any sort of mental issues.
Okay. This is actually a very perfect transition because we're talking about like the whole thing with fear and whatnot, right? So how would you yourself overcome fear, uncertainty, and indecisions and stuff like that?
I think for me, once I realize it's something that I can't control, it takes me a while to process that. So after experiencing a situation where I can't control, I give myself the time to actually sit down and fully process it that, okay, I can't do anything. This is out of my control. So I let myself feel and I label my emotions. Okay, I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling sad. And once you do this, it's good to be aware of your thoughts and emotions because they are currently what you are feeling right now, and all those feelings are valid. So it's okay. And you just need to give yourself some time. And whenever you're ready, then take the next step. And the next step could be different for you and me. So my next step could be implementing certain changes in my life. Or for you, it could be taking a nap, listening to music, distracting yourself. That's also another thing you can do. So I think essentially for me, what works is giving myself the time to sit down and feel my emotions and later on reflect on them. Why did I feel this way? How can I do better next time? That's what I do. And I think a point to remember when you're doing this is that you need to be kind to yourself during this process because you need to remember that you're a human and not a robot. So you can't fix everything. You can't attend to every single thing because you can only do so much. So we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves during this process. So that's basically how I deal with it.
That's actually a very good point, because you mentioned like you need to understand that there are certain things that you really cannot have or don't have control over. And I think for the majority of people, or at least I would like to think so, they don't know that, you should just be like, I can't control this. I should just be like, it's okay, no problem and stuff like that. Like it's just for them an added negative. So like, I have this problem, They cannot like filter and like assess the situation. So yeah, I think it's a very good point that you brought it up lah.
And you're right, because for some people, even though for you and me, it might be like, okay, you can't control this, but to them, it's something they feel that they can control. And another point that you brought up is problems, right? So for me, if I face certain problems, for example, my car breaks down halfway through while I'm driving somewhere. For me, that might be a huge problem because I don't know how to change the tire. I don't know what's the first thing I can do. But if it was another person who knows how to fix a car and that person is with me, to them they might think that situation is a small problem for them. So assessing what is a big problem and what is a small problem can also help you in a way to get a sense of how whether it's something you can control or not control as well.
Yin, your thoughts?
Right. So in terms of uncertainty, right, this is really a very big topic in not just psychology and mental health, but I think it's something that even religions will try to tackle a little. Like
It applies everywhere, right?
There's a lot of, I think as human beings, we fear uncertainty, right? Because it threatens our safety, right? But there are also different kind of uncertainties or things that we can't control, right? And they affect us to different degrees. And that tells us a lot of things, right? For example, I can't control the weather, right? And I can't control when it rains. I can predict when it does, but it doesn't mean I can control it, right? And even the best weather prediction usually fails until, like, let's say, only when the most immediate time comes, right? That's when the accuracy goes up to, like, let's say, 99%, right? And most weather predictions are mostly inaccurate. And that tells us a lot of things, right? Because you don't really mind if the weather is uncontrollable or unpredictable. But why not, right? And that tells us a lot about why certain uncertainties are more difficult for us to manage. Right? Those two things, right? There are more, but two very important points I noticed is that one, this uncertainty has something to do that matters with you. Right? Let's say uncertainties about my career, my own future prospect, or even my health, things that really, really matter to us personally. It tells you your value, it's a priority. And the second thing it tells you is, why do I feel so strongly about this uncertainty? That comes from within ourselves. Right? Inability to accept any sort of uncertainties come also from perhaps a sense of insecurity. Right? Because we want to control a lot of things. And I think the essence of being human is that we have a lot of mastery. Right? We can control things like, let's say, movement, we can control, maybe not the best example, but animals, like plants, food, and things like that. Right? And give us a sense of safety. Right? And in contrast to that, uncertainties give us a sense of insecurity. Right? Uncertainty about how others might respond to us, uncertainty about how others might treat us. Right? Very simple uncertainty that perhaps most people will be able to understand is when you confess your feelings to someone that you love. Oh, I'm so uncertain, I'm so scared. Right? Oops.
No worries.
And so uncertain, but there are a lot of people who are very, very confident, right?
True.
And where do they find that confidence from? Right? Why do they not fear uncertainty? Right? And that's where this sense of security comes in. Right? So I'll say that the fear of uncertainties has got twofold. Right? One, in terms of our values. Second, in terms of our own personal security. It can be emotional security, relationship security. Right? Because uncertainty manifests differently in different areas of our lives. Right? And that's actually a very interesting, maybe just an unrelated plot. It's a book written by one of the founders of positive psychology, Martin Seligman. Right? I think the title is something like "What You Can Change and What You Can't," which is basically what to do with control, uncertainties. And there's also quite a lot of therapy approaches that focuses on this idea about choices, right? And letting go of control. Even things like, let's say, Buddhism will teach you that. Christianity has this prayer about how asking God to show you things that you can change and to accept things that you can't, and how to tell the difference. I'm not really sure how exactly it went, but you can see how this permeates every different area of our life, where uncertainty is really something that we do not like, right? But it comes from within ourselves, right? This insecurity. And in therapy, we do not change the uncertainty, right? I can't control things that no one can control. I can't control how you feel. I can't control how your parents feel. And I can't control how, let's say, your company or boss feel. What I can control is this uncertainty, how I address it, right? I know these things can't be changed. What I want to do about it, right? And how can I feel more secure knowing that even if things are unpredictable, I will still feel safe. I will still know that I am able to overcome any sort of uncertainties, right? Like, for example, if my car breaks down, right? If I know how to change the tire, if I know what to do, I've experienced before my tire punctured in the middle of the highway, or I know what to do. So I'm not afraid, right? Because I am secure with my ability to overcome this adversity. And that's really important for us to deal with uncertainty, right? Which is this belief in ourselves, in our own capabilities, right? In our own, let's say, ability to solve problems, I'll say.
And certainly experiences would help bolster this sense of security as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then just moving on, just touching one final part, about boundaries and everything. So, what do you guys understand by setting healthy personal boundaries, and maybe some ways you personally set them for yourselves? So, anyone can take the floor on this.
I think for me, that now that we're working from home, it's like I mentioned, it's a bit tricky. The lines are a bit blurred. So I make sure like I end my work at a certain time every day so that the rest of the day I have time for myself to recharge, which is, to go for a walk or to play with my nephew and niece, do things that recharge me so that I wouldn't feel super burnt out. And another thing that I noticed that I'm doing is I have been muting certain notifications on my phone and using social media less. And I feel that it really helps me a lot because I don't see, unhappy news or certain things on social media that really make you feel like upset. So that has been working for me so far. And yeah, those are the two things that I noticed that made a lot of changes in my life in terms of setting boundaries.
Okay.
In terms of boundaries, so again, this goes back to the same idea of do as I say and not as I do. About how I think we all know that there needs to be some sort of boundary again. But where do you draw the line? What is appropriate boundaries? And how do you say no? And I'll say that in that sense, there's no right answer, unfortunately, right? It's rather how far you are willing to go and how much you can handle. And also depends on the context, of course. Like, let's say if someone in my family, someone that I really care for, chances are the boundaries are a little bit looser. Let's say with work, right? The boundary may be a little bit tighter, may actually feel a little bit more comfortable putting certain boundaries. So again, I'm not going to work beyond these hours, right? For me, is when these boundaries become too loose or become too tight. When you can't tell, when clients tell me, how far should I draw the boundary? When you do not know where the boundary is, right? And you want to do, why not, right? Why is it that you find it difficult to draw boundaries with, let's say, work? Is it because that there's some sort of fear with how, let's say, if I do not perform or if I do not work overtime, I'm going to get fired? This happens in a lot of firms. I think some industry have this habit of just working all the way to earn PM. I'm sure most of us understand who they are, right? And it's because of this enforced culture that if you do not set your boundaries so loose, that means you're going to get, let's say, demoted, or sometimes you will not be prioritized. And that's what we are afraid of. Right? If I do not set my boundaries loose enough, then I will not be acknowledged or not be recognized. And that's also, again, the issue that we tackle in therapy itself. Right? Because there's no right way to set the boundaries. I can't tell you that, okay, after work hours, you do not respond at all to any sort of messages. Sometimes there may be emergency. Of course, we discourage that. We want to make sure that there is some sort of separation. But in certain work areas, let's say doctors, they do not have this sort of privilege, which is very unfortunate. Right? But these are things that at this moment we can't really control fully. So for us to understand why, I'll be more prioritizing on why this person finds it difficult to set the boundaries rather than where to set the boundaries. Because where to set the boundaries depends on yourself. Right? How much are you comfortable with? Right? Let's say I draw the line here. I'm still not comfortable. Okay, so maybe I draw it a little bit tighter. Am I still not comfortable? I draw it a little bit tighter. Then I can experiment and tell. But if I keep drawing and drawing and drawing and I still not feel it, then that means maybe it's not the boundary issue, but rather, again, it goes back to our own perception of the issue, what sort of insecurity is there, and what sort of complicated, let's say, emotional baggage. Right? It happens a lot in, let's say, relationship, especially abusive ones, where boundaries become just so loose. Right? There's usually some sort of power difference. Right? someone who has a lot of very, very strong boundaries, usually the one who is being the dominant one. And then the other person has very loose boundaries where they just listen to whatever. Why is that such a difference, such a big difference? Right? Because for the dominant person, they're going to be very comfortable with a very, very tight boundary. Right? But for the other person, they can't do that because there's a lot of fear involved. Right? So these boundaries and a lot of different issues as well. It's not just about what we do, how we do it, right? But why do we find it difficult? Because a lot of problems have practical solutions. Right? Let's say like, let's say I lost my job, or let's say I'm struggling in my career, I'm struggling in my exams. Yes, there are practical options, but is that what we need? Right? Do you need a therapist to tell you how to find jobs? Right? I think the question is, why do I fear reaching out? Why do I fear drawing boundaries? Why do I fear trying these things? Right? And it goes back to how I feel about students, which is, in therapy, that's what we notice. It's not just the problem itself. The problem is it's not the whole problem. But let's say someone comes in with procrastination, have sleeping issue. That's usually the symptom. Sometimes we call it manifestation. Right? Things that appear on the surface that tells you, hey, there's something underneath.
So there's usually a more deep-rooted issue.
There's more to the story,
Right. Okay. And that's our job as therapists to find out. Right? It's not just to solve the problem. Right? It's to really find where this is coming from. Right? That's a big part of therapy. Right? Just to figure out where exactly is all this actually coming from.
The root cause.
Just lazy. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so when it really comes to like setting boundaries and all that, it really takes a lot of like reflection and personal discipline to really try to be able to understand where to set the line, where to set the line, what to set the line for, and stuff like that, right?
And because you know yourself the best, so you're the only person who know which boundaries work, what you should set. And what the therapist would do is just point out certain things, certain patterns that they notice in sessions. And with the combination of both, in the end, the client itself will need to make those decisions on it.
Help you make the realization or push you towards the direction. Okay. Well, that's actually all the questions that we had for you guys today. Thank you so much again for taking your time on a Saturday to join us for this podcast and sharing your insights. To close it out, is there any final piece of advice that you'd like to give to our audience regarding mental health, regarding any personal care or whatever? Go ahead.
So I think for me I think always need to remember to be kind to one another, because you never know what the other person is going through behind the scenes. So be kind. Kindness is a superpower that all of us have.
All right.
As for myself, a piece of advice I often give my clients is to think about what I want to do instead of just what I should do. And rather, sometimes maybe flip the narrative. If I think I should do something, ask why. Always ask why. Why do I find certain things difficult? Why do I want to do certain things? And that can actually lead you to a lot of self-discovery. Just to ask ourselves, why?
All right. Thank you once again, Ian and Tapisha, for your time.
Thank you for
It's very
Shun.
No worries. It's very insightful to hear the thoughts and opinions from actually like personal mental health professionals and stuff like that. So it beats our own general opinions. So it's definitely much more credible than what we've talked about previously. All right. So that's all for the podcast, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Stay tuned and watch the other parts of our World Mental Health Day awareness. So there'll be like 4 parts where we talk about it personally for 3 parts, and this will be the 4th part with our mental health professionals. So follow us on all our socials, and yeah, that's all for today's episode. So bye, guys.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.